The Search Podcast USA Edition series is sponsored by Ascen. Ascen is a top employer of record in North America that exclusively helps staffing and recruitment agencies hire contractors compliantly throughout the US and Canada. Ascen's all-in-one white-label platform handles onboarding, timesheets, payroll, benefits, insurance, invoicing, and optional financing so you can grow quickly in the US and Canada. Start growing your staffing agency in the US today with Ascen. Visit us at ascen.com.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to a new episode of the Search Podcast. This is episode 101. We hit 100 last 2 weeks ago now, actually. It's been going on for many, many years. Where I've been interviewing some phenomenal founders, business owners across the recruitment industry that have looking to set up in the US or looking to grow out their US business. Got a very exciting guest with me this week, out in potentially sunny. I don't know if it's sunny today in Florida, but I've got James Baker, who I'll let you take away an introduction of yourself, mate.
Hi, so I'm James Baker. I'm the CEO and founder of Buchanan. We are predominantly a legal search business operating out of London and Miami. We're
Awesome.
about 50 people now.
Awesome. When did you decide as a business, James, that the US was the market to cover? I know you were doing it a lot from the UK initially. What year was it that you transitioned to the US market and then thought that, okay, now we need to actually get a physical presence over there? Do you want to go through a bit of the journey on that?
Yeah, so it was interesting. It was always on the journey to do, and there was always something else that came in the way of it. I suppose we were a victim of our own success of being successful in London meant that every time we looked at doing the US, it was always like, well, we're going to have to take people away from making money in London, so it just never happened. And then COVID happened, and COVID ended up being a bit of a gift for us after the initial panic of is the world going to end and is our business going to collapse and all that usual stuff that everyone went through. We pivoted very quickly to doing the US from London. The US was sort of still going. It was not, it was Trump version one. The US was still in full flow. So we pivoted to the US and did it from London. We
Mm.
found really good traction. We found we loved the market. Then as COVID recovered, we just found we made more and more money in the US. And so it was a question of then, right, how quickly can we get boots on the ground? Because we thought that would spearhead what we were doing. So it was probably a couple of years after COVID that we then went through the whole visa process. And I suppose in our mind, initially, we were like, oh, this is a couple of month exercise. That turned into a much longer time period, as I think
Yeah.
everyone who finds out. Um, but yes, then we ended up launching in March last year. So it took us a few years to get to that point. And I suppose with hindsight, we still weren't very well prepared at all. But
Yeah.
we thought we were. But then when you arrive here and everything starts happening, you realize that perhaps you're not. So,
How long do you reckon it took you guys when you got to Miami to really settle and sort of find your feet as a business over there?
well, we're a year and a month now, and I'm not sure that's still the case. I reckon it probably realistically it took 6 months. It took
Yeah.
6 months to get the hang of. Um, but there's so many challenges that are big business challenges, and then there's so many nuanced American challenges that aren't huge, but end up being really relevant to your team. Like for instance, which the US has lots of statutory holidays, but not all states and not all businesses and segments use them all. Right? So which ones do you support? Which ones don't you support? What does that say about you as a business if you don't support one over another? So that was still fiddly. I think we've kind of got to a point now where we're mirroring broadly what the law firms do,
Yeah.
to make that kind of work. But things like that were complicated. Things like the US loves a nil filing. It's one of their kind of real things. Like so, for instance, reemployment taxes in Florida, we're below the threshold. We don't pay any reemployment taxes, but you
Yeah.
still have to file a nil return every quarter. You don't do that, then there's $100 penalty for not doing it. Well, we learned out the hard way that if you don't do that for a number of months, they accumulate. Things
Yeah.
like that you just they're not on anybody's to-do list when you come out here become really fiddly. Then the bigger picture stuff, I think, trying to work out what good looks like in a candidate out here, that probably took about 6 months. Made some mistakes along the way, but feel we've got a much better handle on what good looks like now and what we're trying to hire.
Yeah. So your journey's been really different to a lot of other founders that I've spoken to on this because as the owner of the business, you actually moved yourself over to Florida. It wasn't just yourself. It was a family move. There was a lot of responsibility to dealing with it, and probably a hell of a lot of stress as well.
Yeah.
Do you mind just sharing a little bit, I guess, about maybe any challenges that you faced, doing that and getting yourself over there with, to be on ground with the business?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I've seen lots of other people do these kind of moves or open these offices, and they don't make the move themselves.
No.
And the problem with being a small owner-operated recruitment business is the only person in our business with any experience of a startup is me.
Mm.
Everybody else we've hired and has worked in our business. And so from that point of view, I thought, well, to maximize the odds of it's a big capital investment to open an office somewhere else. Our London business was really stable. We had a number of directors who two of which were staying in London to look after that. I had a director who was coming out here to launch this with me, and we felt that sort of it was best for me to be on the ground. So that was the decision. That was kind of the easy bit. The hard bit behind that has been trying to put things in place to make London keep working, and that's been a lot of travel, which I hadn't anticipated the strain that takes as well. Like I've
Yeah.
been going back every 4 to 6 weeks for a week, which I think is important.
Yeah.
But that I used to love flying. I don't love flying quite so much now.
No, I bet.
Now I do it a lot. In terms of moving my family out here, I think this is all my wife. This is the podcast should be on her because she gave up a career as a GP, a doctor in London, in order to come out here. I think she was quite happy to stop seeing patients in the current
Yeah.
climate. So
Yeah.
maybe that wasn't as hard a sell as I thought it was at the time. But her focus really has been on integrating. We have two girls, integrating them into American schooling, helping them make friends, and I think she's done an amazing job of that. The kids seem very happy. They still miss some of their friends in London, but they're very happy here.
Yeah.
We've got into lots of clubs and sports and bits and pieces, and I think that's been the key because the kids are happy, because my wife's been happy and she's made loads of friends and been in various networking and groups. It's meant that I could just focus on doing the day job, which is hard enough as it is. But if your family aren't happy, I think that makes these moves impossible. So that's
Yeah.
been really good.
No, absolutely. And you've put yourself out there. And I think what I'd say to a lot of people is if you're going to go to the US, you've got to get yourself out there. You've got to be proactive. You can't just expect and wait for anything to come to you because it's not going to happen. But you seem like you've done absolutely everything to get to where you are, to be that comfortable, which is important. So, no, thanks for sharing all that. And in terms of going back to the business side of it now, hiring and bringing in Americans and getting used to the culture or changing culture, have you had to change your culture in the US to the UK? Have you kept it the same? Like, has there been big differences?
Yeah, so we tried to keep it exactly the same. Um, that I think you have to accept the nuances of different markets if you're going to go into them. I think that initially we sort of some of the kind of management style things that work in London don't necessarily work quite as well with US people. I think we've probably softened the management style ever so slightly by coming out here. I think that's certainly what we found. Maybe that's also a bit of a Florida thing versus say if we were in New York, maybe it'd be more similar.
Yeah.
I think the real challenge has been that we've had to adapting to the candidate flow. We're a graduate hiring model, and that's what we've always done in London. And when we came out here, that's exactly what we've done out here. I think in London we had a really good sense of the type of backgrounds that work for us, the type of competencies, what the baseline was in terms of what to expect. And I think coming here, it's taken us probably 6 to 9 months to really calibrate that. And I think I would say that there were some real pros here. Americans are much better at selling themselves and their presentation. And I think it's easy to get taken away, like whisked away with that and get too excited and think, oh, these candidates are amazing because they present really well. And I think that can mask a number of sins in terms of do they really display the core competencies to your business? We are
Yeah.
a we are a hard work, resilience, motivation, core competency hire. Those are the key things we look for. And I think presentation can often mask some of that. So we've been really gone back to sort of our core principles when it comes to hiring. And I think the second wave that we've done more recently has been more effective and they've hit the
Yeah.
ground running a bit. So yeah, lessons learned, I suppose. But
Yeah, look, I mean, tapped into the difference. I mean, look, you're in Florida, which is obviously very different to hiring in maybe in Texas or into New York or Boston, Chicago, etc. Um, do you think, and then it's a very difficult question to ask, I suppose, but do you think you made the right move being based in Florida, in Miami? Is that, is there a reason why you decided to set up over there as opposed to going into New York for the legal market or anywhere else?
yeah, so we do more work in New York than anywhere else. I suppose there were two things really. One is that um, New York is prohibitively expensive, um, and I think when we're looking at other people that have done it, everyone's moaning about both from a personal taxation and a corporate taxation is higher because the state tax is higher in New York and cost of living is a lot higher, albeit that Miami is accelerating at a rate of knots to catch that up. But we felt that, yeah, it was probably just too expensive and it would make the risk too high. Outside of that, so we want to be on the East Coast for time zone. It's better to liaise with London being on the East Coast time zone. Our clients are in the predominantly in the East time zone. So we could have gone anywhere East Coast. And in America right now, they say if you can live anywhere, live in Miami.
Yeah,
It's the fastest growing city in America. It's cosmopolitan. It's got a lot about it. It's like a magnet for people at the moment. Brickell is the kind of new New York, and young people want to be based here. There's lots going on, so I think it was good from that perspective. There would definitely have been cheaper options.
yeah,
And looking at like the rent that I'm paying and school fees and whatnot here are ridiculous. So
yeah,
yes, there are times where I look at it and think maybe Tampa would have been much more affordable. Maybe it would have been in the
yeah,
Carolinas. Um, but no, I think Miami, if you're going to make the move from and having lived in London, which is a super cosmopolitan city, real melting pot of people, amazing food culture.
yeah.
Um, Miami is closer to that than probably anywhere else other than New York on the East Coast. So
Fantastic. And how different has it been, in a ideally in a positive way to the business's bottom line, being physically on the ground in the US as opposed to operating it from London, being able to potentially meet with clients, being on the right time zone. Has it had a huge impact on the success of the company?
definitely. So the business we've got out here, we still have quite a sizable team in London operating in the US market,
Yeah,
and they're a very established team, very, very profitable. But we've been able to bridge a lot of that gap in terms of profitability per head with very junior people who I think has been, like, if we're honest, has been a mixed bag over the last year in terms of what we've hired, and we've certainly had some attrition as well. But yet we're still very, very profitable, very close to the profitability per head. And that's a reflection of the time zone. And it's really interesting. Obviously, the time zone didn't move simply when I arrived in Miami, but when you're in London, and your whole, really, you can speak to, like, especially you can speak to America from late morning all the way till you go to bed, and it's fine. I don't think I really appreciated quite how early, even if you're having people in London work pretty late hours, that cuts off with the middle of the day. Particularly in our market, lawyers work a later day. They tend to start late and then they work super late.
yeah,
So even if and our London team works till 10 p.m. this year, we've adjusted their hours a bit, partly in reflection to how much because they used to work till 8, and 8 is just too early in the day,
yeah,
the time zone. But even then, like, it just is such an advantage to be in the time zone. Travel wise, we put together a big travel plan at the start of the year. We've gone and met with clients. Internal flights are very achievable. You can pop up to New York in a couple of hours. You can do it, at a push, you can do it in a day. I mean, not super desirable, but it's
yeah.
possible. And as a result, we've definitely been boots on the ground. And I think what's been really refreshing, and I've seen this in loads of other people's podcasts, all the rest of it is, I think for a while post-COVID, clients were, oh no, I'd rather do a Zoom. I'd rather do a Zoom. because it was easier and because it was a hassle having to meet people, and there were a lot of them were working from home, so that meant having to come into the office. I think that's now reversing. I think it's one of those now, like, people love the idea of meeting again in real life. So actually, we found that, like, us having the ability to do that has also sort of come together with clients wanting to do it more. So yeah, that's been really, really good for us.
Brilliant. And what's the plans for the business, now, James? You've been over there since last year. Seems to be going in a really strong direction. I know you guys have had some phenomenal success from speaking to you time to time. What's the plan for the rest of this year and where you see, the journey of the company going? Is there any new offices on the horizon or just growing out Brickell? What's the plan?
Yeah, so the office we have in Brickell, has, like, we got super lucky. We're in the Sabadell Centre, which is an amazing high rise with a 27th floor with a view of the water. I think we kind of lucked out a bit with that. We're kind of right place, right time.
Yeah,
And the office is got the capacity for 25 people. So, and we're just under 10. So we want to grow that out, and clearly that's kind of plan A. But I
yeah,
suppose looking down the line, we've got people in London who would love to come out to the US, and we've got some that are moving out to our Miami office. There's others who'd be interested in other parts of America. The natural evolution for us is something in the West Coast time zone. It's a market that is very under sort of broke. There's lots of opportunity there. It's very, very hard to cover that from London, so you don't get many London recruiters wanting to do that. I briefly had someone doing it from London, but that it really is antisocial because it's another number of hours further on
yeah,
than the East Coast. So yeah, we want something West Coast.
yeah,
We're on the West Coast again, pretty open-minded. Again, trying to straddle that difference between cosmopolitan, cool area to be also not having the most ridiculous taxes. I think it's where Miami kind of fits that middle ground of Florida is very low taxation, but Miami is still quite cosmopolitan,
yeah.
very attractive for graduates. So trying to find a similar thing, but West Coast really.
Absolutely. And for those listening in, what advice could you give to them in terms of, that let's just say they're at a point where they're doing bits and bobs in the UK to the US. They're in a position right now where they're thinking about their plans to move across the water. What do you suggest or would advise them to be mindful of in the kind of initial decisions that they make?
Um, Make sure you've got a pot of cash
Yeah,
because this is more expensive than it looked. The legals of setting things up in America are very, very expensive. I don't think we used particularly expensive lawyers. They were really good, but they were really expensive in the end. I mean, it's an order of magnitude different to the UK. Accountants are like 10 times the price. Any of these professional services are much more expensive. So I think you've got to have some money, so that you don't end up having to make a panic decision if you don't make a load of revenue in the first few months. So I'd
yeah,
make sure you've got a decent runway. But beyond that, the answer is definitely do it. I have a big presence in the UK. It's still a big business and all the rest of it, but the exciting bit and where the vast, vast bulk of our revenue are coming from is the US.
yeah,
Um, Even notwithstanding some of the current, you know, turbulence in the markets and all that kind of stuff. The America, the fundamentals are still so sound. It's such an aggressively growing market. Our market is driven by private equity activity, and that is booming this year. It's expected to be booming next year. And in the world of recruitment, private equity money always precedes a bunch of hiring, and
yeah,
therefore
absolutely.
the market is in a really positive place. The US is it's bigger fees, it's better fees, but it's not just that. It's the whole relationship with talent people here is just so much more positive. Talent people are there working with recruiters going, I want to help you make more money and be more successful with our firm, as opposed to these are the rules that you need to follow, and if you don't follow them, I'll kick you off the preferred supply list. It's
Yeah,
just a totally different type of conversation
yeah.
and really positive, super refreshing. And so from that perspective, I can't think of a better place currently globally that you'd want to be making money than the US.
Yeah, I mean, you're saying the same as a lot of other people. The business development, the relationships, the way that it's treated over there is a much more nicer place than dealing with most other locations. So, no, look, James, really appreciate everything you've said, sharing all this information. For those that listen in on this, please feel free to reach out to James and the guys at Buchanan. Awesome business, have been successful year on year, and doing some really special things, as you heard James on the podcast today. I'll be putting all of your socials out with everything that goes on every channel for the podcast and across all social media. So if anyone wants to get in touch, they can. And again, thank you very much. I'll leave you to go and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Elliot. Thanks.